Okay, so now look at that. Now that we've changed into portrait mode, we've got some nice light directly above us. Okay, so always think about what the sky is doing. Okay, now if I just brighten this up a little so we can sort of see our foreground. So that, as you can see, not the most epic location in the world, but it's nice, okay? And that's what it's all about, just getting some nice photos. So once again, I'm going to do all this in one exposure. I'm just exposing for my highlights. We've had a few storms up here lately, so the water's a bit dirty. So we don't have that nice, clean, clear water. So what I'm going to do is try and capture some movement over the rocks. Use a long exposure to try and get rid of that colour out of the water so we get some nice water flow. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got this wave rolling in, and as it crashes over the rock, I want to get that. Okay, so that's going to be my foreground interest. And what I'll do is I'll run through composition, I'll run through everything here, and then we'll follow it up with an editing session. Okay, so today's all about composition. Now the sun is setting off to our left. So shooting this way, the sky's looking okay. It's not the most epic sky of all time, but we've got nice light. Okay, because we're not shooting directly into the sun, we're shooting away from the sun. We can get all this in one exposure. We don't need multiple exposures. We can get all this in one exposure. This is where foreground becomes really important, and getting that movement in the water. And what we'll do is we'll turn all this dirty water into something looking a little bit nicer. Okay, so as you can see there, you've got some nice waves crashing in, and that's what I want to do. I want to capture all this movement in the water, and our sky's doing enough that it's going to be fairly interesting. Okay, so let me get set up and I'll show you what we're doing. Okay, so as you can see, this is how close I am to my foreground. So fairly close, okay, but we don't really need to focus stack because I don't have anything directly in front. I don't mind if directly at my feet blurs a little. Our focus is that rock and the wave crashing over the rocks. So if I focus just beyond that rock, that's going to be in focus, and our sky will be in focus as well. Okay, so all I'm really doing at this stage is watching my highlights. I just want to make sure my highlights are fairly well under control. So what I'm going to do is get my shutter speed to 1/6 of a second. Okay, I want my shutter speed at the 1/6 of a second, even up to 1/5 of a second. And then all I'm going to do, let's get our ISO to 100. And all I'm going to do now is change my aperture until this histogram isn't clipping to the right. So the whitewash will create a slightly brighter scene. So around about F11, focusing out on that rock. And once again, I'm just going to manually focus on that rock and then just slightly go towards infinity. Okay, so our subject's going to be nice and sharp. The water, we're going to get all this movement here. And then we've got a sky that looks reasonably nice. Okay, and all I'm going to do now is basically play with aperture to get that histogram as close to the right as I possibly can. I'm just going to put my 2-second timer on. Okay, so just waiting for waves to roll in. As they roll in, I'm timing it to get all that whitewash. The more whitewash, the better, okay? Because the water's so dirty, the whitewash will get rid of that color of the water. So here comes a nice wave now. So just timing it as the wave rolls over that rock, we get that nice waterfall effect over the rock. Okay, so we've just moved around to get a little bit more of the sunset. And as you can see, fairly close to our foreground still, but not directly in front that I need to focus stack. Okay, so yeah, that's a nice wave. So that's what I want. I want that wave crashing. So I'll show you what we've got on the back of the camera. Okay, so now look at that. Now that we've changed into portrait mode, we've got some nice light directly above us. Okay, so always think about what the sky is doing. Okay, now if I just brighten this up a little so we can sort of see our foreground. So that, as you can see, not the most epic location in the world, but it's nice. Okay, and that's what it's all about, just getting some nice photos. So once again, I'm going to do all this in one exposure. I'm just exposing for my highlights. Okay, again, I still want that 1/2 second exposure. So I'm going to get my exposure down to around about 1/6 of a second. Just change my aperture. Okay, so as you can see, we've got color happening up. So in portrait mode, I've just bumped up my ISO to 200 because I still want that 1/2 second shutter speed. I might even push it out to 1/8 of a second. We're at F9. I might even just bump up my ISO to 250. Okay, highlights under control. F10, that's nice. Okay, I'm going to get this one as the water runs out. Okay, so that's quite nice. And again, I'm just timing it so the waves are crashing up over the rock. So that's a nice one, lots of movement. And the more movement we get, the less brown the water will look. Okay, so this one I'll get it as the water's running out, and really nice reflections on the rocks now. Okay, and that's looking quite nice. This is all in one shot, okay? No multiple exposures needed. The sun's quite diffused. It's really nice light, to tell the truth. So there's the back of the camera, and as you can see, really nice light now. So now it's just a matter of working with these waves and getting some nice movement to sort of distract from that dirty water. Okay, if you've got a remote trigger makes life a lot easier. My remote trigger's in the bag, but this is sort of more designed for people without all the gear. Okay, you don't need to go and spend lots of money on gear to get some nice shots. Yes, it does make life easier to have all the gear, but if you can get good shots with just very basic equipment, you don't have to carry around extra stuff with you. Okay, and it's all about timing. Get that 2-second timer, and eventually you'll work out when you need to hit that shutter to allow the 2 seconds for that water to flow. Okay, so as you can see, we're starting to lose the colour in our sky, but I'll get a few more shots here with a slightly longer exposure, and then we'll wind it up and I'll show you how I edit these sorts of photos. I'm going to do a very basic, simple edit, but more so to show you the images that we've got and how we can just get a little bit more out of them. Okay, so these are the raw files. I've ended up with 35 raw files, which is not a lot for a sunset shoot. Just got out there, seen the color of the water and thought, okay, long exposures, let's get that water movement. Let's get some textures in the water so the water doesn't look quite so brown and dirty. Okay, so here's the raw files. First thing I want to do is just change my camera profile to Adobe Landscape. I'm going to bring down my highlights a little bit. I'm going to lift my shadows a little bit. I'm going to bring down my whites and lift my blacks, okay? Because I will introduce blacks and whites further down the track. I don't like to get a white point early on, get a black point early on. I'll introduce them where I want them and when I want them. I don't like doing it at this stage of the process. I go the other way, okay? I bring detail into my image. If we look at the before and after, okay, they're very dark. So now I'm just bringing in some of those blacks and whites just so I can see what I'm dealing with. Okay, and that's more sort of my initial workflow, is to get the image to a state where I can see what's going on a bit more clearly. Okay, raw file, you know, deep shadows, bright highlights. Now we're flattening out the image so we can see where everything is. Okay, lens correction, remove chromatic aberration, enable lens correction. I know with my lens, the correction's a bit aggressive with the vignetting, so I just take my vignetting back a little bit. Okay, now I change my white balance. Now that I've got it to a starting point, now I can start to play around with white balance, get it roughly where I want it. I do want a bit of that golden glow on the rock, so I'm going to warm it up just a tad. Just trying to remember what I saw at the time. Okay, just warm that up a little. That's not a bad starting point. Now, with an image like this, because we have lots of texture, okay, we have lots of texture in our water, we have lots of texture in our rocks. So what we're going to do is actually increase our texture, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. If you've got lots of texture and you want to bring out that texture, increase it. Okay, and this is what I recommend to all my students, is play with the sliders and see what they do. Okay, see, if we take that down, it softens everything. Okay, and that's why I won't do full workflows, because it's all personal preference. When it comes to editing, personal preference, you choose what you like. Okay, I'm not going to tell you this is what you should do. This is more what I like. Okay, I see texture in the water, I'm going to increase my texture. Okay, with this image, for example, okay, this is nice and smooth. We might want to go the other way and smooth it down. Okay, every image is different. You don't process them all the same way. You process them all how you see them. Okay, and that's why I don't like doing full workflows, because you know they're your images. You edit them. I'm just going to give you some ideas on what you can do. So in saying that, I'm going to bring up my texture just a little bit for this one, get that looking a little bit nicer. Next thing I'm going to do is just deal with my sky. So I'm going to come up to my masking tools, going to grab a linear, actually let's straighten that horizon first. I can see my horizon isn't perfectly straight. So he's going to grab this and just get that horizon as straight as I possibly can. There's looking good. Now I'm going to come to my masking tools, grab a linear gradient. And just by holding the shift key, that's going to give us a nice, so even if I try and smooth this, it's going to come straight down. Okay, if we do a linear gradient, and we don't hold the shift key, we can move our gradient. Okay, so by holding the shift key, you can move it and it's going to come straight down. Okay, so we want it nice and straight with a straight horizon, and a nice big soft gradient always works better. I want it to just come into the water, but not too far. And I'm just going to bring down that sky just a tiny bit, okay? Maybe lift the contrast just a tiny bit. Contrast will boost the color. Okay, and this is where I like to introduce my blacks and whites to certain parts of the image. Okay, we'll probably even warm it up just a little bit more as well. Okay, so somewhere around about there, looking a bit better. Now, back to the blacks and the whites. What I want to do is I just want to bring in whites into the areas that I have white. Okay, the global one, it's going to bring in whites into our sky, which is what I don't want. I'm going to bring in white into that whitewash. So I'm going to create another mask. I'm going to grab a brush tool, and I'm just going to lift my whites. Let's lift it all the way up to about 60, just so we can see what's happening. And all those areas of whitewash, I'm now going to paint in my whites. Okay, and just paint in wherever I see some whitewash. So somewhere about there, and once we've painted, we can dial it up or back or wherever we want. Okay, for the sake of YouTube compression, I'm going to overdo it. I will overcook it just so we can see it taking effect. Okay, so there's before and there's after. Now we're introducing whites where we want our whites. And that's why I don't do it early in the process. Do it early in the process, and all of a sudden you're going to start blowing your whites. Okay, you're going to get too bright. If we've already taken our white point to a white point, if we introduce more white, it's going to be a bit overdone. Okay, so now I'm bringing in whites where I want my whites. Okay, and then finally onto the blacks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a radial gradient. I'm going to do a nice big gradient to cover almost the entire image. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert this gradient. So now it's only affecting the outside of the image. And what I'm going to do is boost my contrast, and that's going to add blacks or darks back into the outside. So now that's basically leading my eye into the center of the frame. Okay, so there's before and there's after. It's very subtle, but yeah, that's before, that's after. I'll just turn that clipping warning off for now. Okay, and that's a very basic edit. That's, you don't need to do a lot to an image that's already okay. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll sit on that for a few days. I'll come back to it and then I'll re-edit it. Okay, generally when I re-edit, it is usually white balance. Okay, that's about all I really do. I just try to, trying to work out our white balance and where we want it. Okay, because white balance is one of those things. You look at this image on a different day and it will look different. Okay, so that's it. That's my starting point. That's all I'm going to do to that image. Now, because all these images are very similar, what I'm going to do with that first one selected, I'm going to hold my shift key and select the last one in that sequence. And then I'm just going to hit sync, going to check all and then synchronize. And now what that's going to do is apply exactly what I've done to that image across all of those images. So now I've essentially got them to a starting point. Okay, and that's all it is. It's just a starting point. And this is what I was talking about out on location, is just play with different shutter speeds to get all these different effects. Okay, you've got water rushing in over the rocks. You've got water running out away from the rocks. I really like this one's probably my favorite with all these texture in the rocks. The first one, like I do, that was the point of the video, was to get all this movement of water over this rock. And look, I could probably blend a few of these together. But more so just to give you some ideas on how, by playing with different shutter speeds and playing with that water movement, okay, we've hidden all that brown water. Okay, all that brown water is hidden by the whitewash. And we've got some reasonably nice images. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I have rated a few of these images just so we don't have to go through all of them. And we're going to move on to the next ones, because these ones are the nice ones. Okay, this is where we started to get a bit of color. And look the difference some color makes. That's an edited image, and this one's a raw file. Okay, so straight away we've got some nice color. Things are starting to look better. Okay, so again, I've just selected a few. What I'm going to do is pick probably my favorite one. Oh, I don't know if I have a favourite one, to tell the truth. They're all kind of nice. I think there is a... And when we start to lose our colour, and then eventually we get into blue owl, which is really nice. Okay, so let's go with this one. I think, again, I'm looking at the textures. Like this is, yes, we've got that movement over the rocks, which looks quite nice. If we just brighten it up, we can sort of get a better idea of what we're dealing with. Okay, but again, too much water flow for my liking. Okay, love this part of the image. And again, this is where we could do a blend. We could blend some of these rocks in. I'll save that for another video. Like I said, this is going to be a very quick and easy. It was more about composition and working with the conditions that we had to get some nice images. Okay, so with this one, I am going to apply my Seascape. Seascape preset is exactly what I did here. Okay, that's pretty much what I've done there, is my Seascape image, less the texture. Okay, and that's our starting point. That's looking nice already. Okay, so what I'm going to do is sync that across to these ones. And then now that I've got a good starting point, see, now look at that texture in the rock. So that one I do really like. That one, actually that one, now that I can see, and that's why I like to have a starting point, because now I can actually see what's in my image. Okay, where if we look at our raw files, you look at that and you think, yeah, I don't know, now that I can actually see all that texture in the water, that's probably my favorite image. We've got movement, we've got rocks, we've sort of got a little bit of everything. And once again, a good image is a good, we don't need to do a lot to this. Okay, so similar to before, if anything, we could just paint in some of that whitewash. So just grab our brush tool, increase our whites, paint in some of that whitewash, bring in a bit of texture there. I'd even bring some white into these rocks as well to really enhance that glow. Okay, I don't want whites in my sky. I don't even need to darken down the sky, to tell the truth. I think that looks pretty good where it is. And again, just to boost our color and give it a bit of punch, let's just add some global contrast, and look what that does. Okay, contrast just kind of boosts our color. Okay, so that's, you know, that's a nice image without being, you know, an award-winning image. It's just a nice image, and that's what this was all about. Just going out, getting some photos, and being relatively happy with them. Okay, and then finally, let's move on to the blue hour. So these are the blue hour shots, and again, all in one exposure. Okay, if I put my clipping warnings on, yes, we have clipped our shadows a little bit, but I'm happy with that. Okay, I did do multiple exposures just to get all that detail, but this video is all about single exposures. Okay, keeping things simple. Okay, keeping our composition fairly simple. Again, let's apply my Seascape preset. And again, like having all these rocks in my frame is kind of composition I was going for. I like to have things around my frame, framing up our subject. In this case, you know, this subject was the rock. And then we've got the nice sky just to sort of set it off. But having these rocks all kind of pointing in towards our subject, and that's kind of a common theme you'll see with a lot of my images, is not so much leading lines, more balance. Okay, having something around the edge of our image to take our eye into the image. Okay, I will show you some unbalanced images. Trust me, I get plenty of them. But these ones are nice. Okay, we've got a frame around our image. Okay, it's just, I like this composition, and you know, it works for me, and that's what it's all about. It's, you take photos for yourself. Don't try and please other people. You take photos that you like, and you'll find that many people will like what you like. Okay, there's going to be people that don't like it, but as long as you do, okay, photography is a very personal thing. You're not there to please other people, unless you're a wedding photographer or a sports photographer where you're doing photos for other people. Okay, landscape is, it's a very personal thing. Okay, you capture what you see, you know, it's your style. So if anything with this one, look, once again, I don't need to do a lot to it. Like I said, I'm going to keep this stream very simple. I'll get back into the flow of things when I'm feeling a little bit better. If anything, I'll just warm that up. Okay, and that's looking pretty nice. Okay, very little editing, and we're bringing that to life. Okay, so that's about all I'm going to do for this video. I will get back into the swing of things later when I'm feeling a bit better. But yeah, this one was all about just working with the conditions, and you know, I'm really happy with this image. This is a really nice image on a day that wasn't looking great. Okay, brown, dirty water. but having that longer exposure, creating some texture in the water, especially whitewash, will, you know, make your images look a bit nicer. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hopefully you did like it. If you did, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, give it a thumbs up. That'll give me an idea of what people like. So if you do like videos like this, yeah, give it a thumbs up so I get an idea of what people want to see. I'm still finding my feet on YouTube. This is the thing that I like to do at this stage. Things may change in the future depending on, you know, it's up to you guys. What do you guys want to see? Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll get notified when I'm planning a live stream. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all again very shortly.